The Lord of the Rings isn't the only franchise to suffer from toxic fans. The Star Wars fandom has also been notoriously racist and toxic in the past. And so, as a sign of respect, Star Wars offered a bit of support to anyone who might have been affected by the regretful actions of some of Tolkien's fans recently. In today's video, we'll discuss all this and more. So let's dive right in. First up, the support comes directly from the official Star Wars Twitter. Considering their very own battles against toxic fans, it makes sense why Star Wars, out of all the other franchises, would stand in solidarity with the Rings of Power. A recent post was made by the official The Lord of the Rings on Prime Twitter account, discussing how their fandom has no place for toxicity and that they stood with their cast. The official Star Wars account also used this post as an opportunity to showcase their support for the movement, writing, "From Middle-earth to a galaxy far, far away," with the hashtag, "You are all welcome here." Star Wars has made its stance on toxicity quite clear. Fans of both franchises were happy to see some unity between them. Despite not falling under the Disney umbrella, Star Wars felt the need to make a statement about the recent racist backlash that has been hurled at the cast of The Lord of the Rings. So, it's good to see these rival companies managing to come together for a single cause. Fans described it to be like an Avengers team-up. Recently, Star Wars in general has been quite vocal against the toxic parts of its fan base. Much like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars has had similar issues in the past. Parts of their fandom have always been incredibly toxic, to the point of even spreading negativity to some of its actors. Though we should mention, Star Wars hasn't always been this vocal. While it's great to see the franchise take more active steps against the harassment and toxicity suffered by its cast members, let's keep in mind that the franchise wasn't always this vocal. John Boyega recently shared in a podcast how Disney failed to support him when he was the subject of racist backlash. Back when it was announced that he'd play the role of a stormtrooper named Finn, racist Star Wars fans attacked him just because of his skin color. And while you'd expect Disney to be by his side, Boyega explains how things weren't so great back then. Instead of supporting him, the company instead decided to stay silent and just hoped that eventually all of the backlashes would go away. This meant that John really had no one to lean on and had to navigate through all this toxicity on his own. We can't imagine how tough that must have been, especially as a new actor in a franchise as massive as Star Wars. Recounting his experience, John stated that he was glad that, at the very least, things have finally changed for the better. While Disney didn't really speak out for him, it's nice to see them taking more active steps nowadays. The company recently defended Obi-Wan Kenobi actress Moses Ingram when she was being sent racist remarks and death threats from toxic fans. And now, with the support they've given to the Lord of the Rings cast, it's clear they're consistently fighting against toxicity. Moving on, here's the full statement the official Lord of the Rings Twitter released. While Star Wars might have had a short and sweet response, the full statement shared by the official Lord of the Rings Twitter account is quite detailed. The post takes a stand against the toxic comments that have surfaced online after the release of the first 2 episodes of The Rings of Power. These comments include racism, threats, harassment, and abuse. So they're not just light criticisms of the show, as some of these toxic fans might have you believe. The full message from the team behind The Rings of Power stated that they stand together in solidarity against the racism and threats which some of their castmates of color had to endure. The message states that they refuse to ignore or tolerate these comments any further. The post adds that Tolkien's world is multicultural by definition. It's a world where different races and cultures join together against the forces of evil, and the Rings of Power reflects this concept. It further added that neither has our world, nor has fantasy ever been all white. The message made it clear that people of color belonged in Middle-earth and were there to stay. The post also thanked fans who were supporting the show, especially fans of color who might have been the subject of some of these attacks themselves. The team also made sure to highlight all the unique content that the fans had been making for the series, including cosplays, fan art, insights, and much more. It ends by calling fans an integral part of the LOTR family and thanking them for having the shows back. Plus, stars from the original LOTR trilogy have also spoken up. Elijah Wood, who played Frodo Baggins in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, shared an image of himself alongside co-stars Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd. All 3 of them were seen wearing a shirt that showed support for the colored cast members of The Rings of Power, showing elf ears of various skin colors. The shirt was a clear indicator of the fact that racism has no place in Tolkien's world. Alongside the image, Wood also added the caption, "You are all welcome here," which was written in Elvish on his shirt. With so many people from the industry speaking out against the racist backlash, we can only hope that it becomes less of an issue moving forward. Though it's still unclear how the backlash might have affected the Rings of Power financially. We just hope that its cast members know that most of the fans have their back and that they don't feel demotivated by a few bad apples. And with that, let's move on to some related news. In other news, next, Neil Gaiman slaps back at Elon Musk's response to the Rings of Power series. Elon Musk is no stranger to controversial opinions, and in a recent tweet, he called out the Rings of Power over its depiction of its male characters. He took issue with how all the men in the series were shown as jerks or cowards. Musk also jokingly stated that Tolkien must be turning in his grave after seeing the series. After this tweet went viral, some fans asked Neil Gaiman, the mind behind the Sandman comics, what his thoughts on the situation were, and his response was downright hilarious. Neil slapped back at Elon, saying that Musk doesn't come to him for advice on how to fail to buy Twitter, and so he's not going to go to him for criticism on film, TV, or literature. Ouch. Safe to say, people were having a field day with this tweet, and many fans of Gaiman's work joined in on the fun. Of course, Elon fanboys were quite upset by the statement, especially with how viral it became. Plus, Disney announces new prequel to The Lion King. Disney has recently announced that they're making a prequel to The Lion King movie, and no, we're not talking about the animated one everyone loves. They somehow decided the 2019 live-action adaptation of The Lion King needed its very own prequel. Mufasa is set to be directed by Barry Jenkins and tells the story of how Simba's father rose from humble beginnings to become the ruler of the Pride Lands. Fans' responses have been mixed, to say the least. Some were shocked that this is a story that needs to be told at all, while others were wondering why Disney decided to go for the live-action route for the movie, even though it was pretty heavily criticized by fans back in 2019. Some fans also pointed out how despite having so many properties that deserve spin-offs and prequels, this is what Disney came up with. At this rate, we wouldn't even be surprised if Disney decided to somehow retcon Mufasa's death and claim that he somehow survived and is back. Hey, they did that with Palpatine in Star Wars, didn't they? And finally, Marvel is releasing a new Captain America game set in World War II. Marvel recently announced that they're working on a game for Captain America featuring Black Panther. The game is apparently set during the Second World War and will involve players taking on the role of 4 characters, each with their own unique personalities and abilities. Details on the Marvel game are pretty light so far, but Skydance New Media is its developer. Fans are excited to see the interesting places and characters that might show up during the game. Many have also speculated that Wolverine could end up making a cameo during the game too, since he was one of the superheroes who was active during that time period. Either way, it's going to be pretty exciting to see how the different characters and roles the game offers will play out when it gets a full-fledged trailer. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think of the Star Wars response to the toxic Lord of the Rings fans? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See ya in the next one.